You know, here's a place that people from all over the globe, every far-reaching country, save their money and scrimp and save so they can visit one time in their life a place that we can go any weekend we want. So made me angry, made me outraged, made me see the world in a different way. The heat was the sun was like on my shoulder, it was growling at me. The heat was a thing alive, it was clawing at me. I was just raining sweat. By the time I was 18, I knew these two great truths of my life. I was going to be a writer and I was going to live in Arizona.
We've got a great guest today.
Well, I want to get to our guest, but man, I got to call you out on this, man. I went out to the Jackson and I went to the concert that we did from the band that we was with last night. Amazing. We were amazed. I've never seen Jackson not say any word except for every other time he's in here. Okay. but seriously, the Jack put on a great show. We appreciate them coming out. They appreciate them being part of our podcast. Hopefully we can do some things with them in the future. But who's this great guest you got?
We have Roger Naylor, author and adventurer.
So what kind of author? Is he like an Arizona author? Or is he fiction, nonfiction?
Arizona author, talking about all things Arizona.
One of my favorite subjects. Welcome, Roger. How are you, sir?
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We talked groupies last week with the rock band, but I didn't know that an author and an adventurer like yourself could have so many groupies, man. I told people about you coming onto our show, and people were like, my mother-in-law was like Elvis and stuff, telling me how much she loved you and how much she followed your writing. So, listen, I've got a pretty good mother-in-law, but I think you've got a really good fan there.
Well, that's nice to hear. She's welcome to come to one of my talks and throw her underpants up on the stage like they do to Elvis.
Heck yeah.
I'm kind of hoping for one of those.
Let's see what I can say. We've got some
appreciate
different type of people on this show, so you might just get that. Okay, you might just get that. So, Roger, tell us, how'd you get started in here? We asked you earlier if you were a native of Arizona, and because most of the time people that are passionate about Arizona are pretty much from Arizona, like myself. I was born here on the Air Force Base, and I love Tucson. I love Arizona. Now, the funny thing about me, Roger, is I did not leave the city of Tucson until I was 19 years old. All I knew about was Sierra Vista and Tucson. I did not go to the Grand Canyon until later in life. I didn't really even see Phoenix until I figured out who the Phoenix Suns were. And so that's what started getting me out and about. And then for me, it was my wife, and I won't give her what number wife she is, but she from the day that we got married, she established outdoors was going to be part of our relationship.
Good for her.
We honeymooned, Matt, on the edge of the Grand Canyon.
That's awesome.
Okay, which was an amazing experience. Yeah. And so how did you get into this, Roger? I mean,
I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I knew I was going to be a writer since I was a kid. I first picked up a book of Mark Twain essays when I was 13. Made me laugh so hard. Twain was the funniest writer to ever live. But they also made me angry, made me outraged, made me see the world in a different way. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to touch people with my words. So I knew I was going to be a writer. Fast forward to high school there in Ohio, and I've got a serious high school sweetheart, and my parents loved her parents loved me, and everybody was pretty keen on the idea that we were going to get married as soon as we graduated, because that's what you did back in the 70s, especially from our backgrounds. Her family's from Tennessee, my family's from deep backwoods Kentucky. So as soon as you got your schooling out of the way, you got married, you started making the babies. Yep. Everybody is very enthused about this whole concept. My dad was going to help me get a job at the General Motors plant where he worked. He was going to co-sign a loan, so I was going to be 18 with a wife, a mortgage, and a factory job.
Yeah, I've been there.
And I'm kind of thinking, this is not what I really had in mind. One day, we're at a shopping mall, and I see my girlfriend in the store, and she's trying on engagement rings.
Oh!
All of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. I thought, this is it. This is my life. It's slipping away from me. So I started to think about ways I could bolt. I thought about running away to join the circus. I thought about hopping a freight train. I had uncles who would hop freight trains. They made it sound like quite the adventure. Then I started thinking about college. I wasn't interested in actually going to college because there wasn't anything to go to college to be. I could go to be an English teacher. I could go to be a journalist. I wasn't that keen on either one, but I thought about college as an escape. So I started looking out west because I wanted to get as far away as possible, but also because I was fascinated by the West. I grew up watching cowboy movies, and I was just, like the shootouts and action, but I was intrigued by the scenery, mountains and canyons and cactus, all those things I couldn't see from my Ohio window. So I applied to a little school in Flagstaff, Northern Arizona University. It was already 10 days past the deadline. I didn't tell a soul that I'd applied. But I had enough money. It was so reasonable back then. I could actually pay for a semester of college on my own because I was pretty sure my dad was going to disown me anyway. So I sent off the application, passed the deadline. This was my Hail Mary. Finally, a few weeks later, I get a letter. My mom finds it, says, "You've got a letter here from Northern Arizona University. Is there something you want to tell me?" So I had been accepted, and I had to be there in 6 days. And so big uproar. Nobody knew I was going. My mom was worried. My dad was furious. My girlfriend was very confused. I get on a plane for the first time, fly out to Denver, then get on a tiny little plane. We dusted some crops as we're coming into Flagstaff. But I step off that Flagstaff, in Flagstaff, in that airport, smelled that pine-scented air for the first time in my life. And all of a sudden I could breathe again. I saw the outline of the San Francisco peaks, and I knew I was home. That was it. I was done. So by the time I was 18, I knew these two great truths of my life. I was going to be a writer, and I was going to live in Arizona, and that was it. So Arizona saved my life, and I've never forgotten it. It's been a love affair ever since.
Boy, Roger and I have kind of a parallel universe going on. 18, except I went the father route. I went to college, but I wasn't enrolled to college, if that makes sense. Okay, good place to hang out and meet girls because my marriage did not last long, right, at 18. How amazing. My favorite character in any Mark Twain book is Becky from Tom Sawyer, and I've had a crush on her since the 5th grade. So much I wanted to name our daughter Becky, and my wife refused. But that's okay. I get it.
It's all right.
Hey,
Survived.
Sabino High School put on a play of Tom Sawyer. That's all it took for me. So you get up into Flagstaff. It's great. Oh, my goodness. Arizona's not as bad as it sounds.
Oh, I loved it right from the start.
Leaves change. We got cooler weather. And then you travel, 100 miles?
No, I went everywhere. I started, I dropped out of college very quickly. That was pretty much the end of my career because I figured out I could get up in the morning and I could go to class or I could hitchhike to the Grand Canyon, so that was it.
That's when you could, right?
Yeah. Back in the 70s. It was a different time, different era. So, I dropped out and just spent the next several years just rambling around Arizona. I'd go back to Ohio and because I could always do landscaping work. I mowed yards. I could do make some money, and then I'd come back in the fall and winter. Crash around for 6 months at a time. That run out of money, go back. I kept doing that, and then finally.
Well, let me make sure we don't put you in hobo status here, okay? So were you working, and are we out living in the bush?
Oh no, I was always had a place
responsible
and stuff.
young adult.
I'd work. I'd stayed with friends in Tucson. I spent about 3 months living in the Geronimo Hotel, the old Geronimo Hotel. Like the rent was like $33 a week, I think, or
think
something.
about that.
Is that were you writing at that time?
I was
early?
always writing. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't making
journaling
a living
more,
as writing, but
yeah.
I was just kind of trying to find my voice, trying to figure things out. But I started. Once I was back in, off and on in Cincinnati, I started writing for some of the local papers and magazines, and I was writing mostly humor. I'd write pop culture, politics. Did that for a lot of years and stuff. And then once we're living out here for full time for many years, I just kept thinking, I lived such a great life in Arizona. This is what I want to write about. And so I started pitching story ideas to the Arizona Highways, and they started buying them. And so I'm writing for Arizona Highways for many years, and then I started doing the same for the Arizona Republic. So then I've been the freelance travel writer for the Arizona Republic since 2007 now. And I started writing for the Arizona Visitor Guide and all the the websites, and pretty soon the books started coming, and one after another. So basically I ramble around this state. I hike and eat hamburgers, and people write about them. People pay me. How cool is that? Is that like the
that sounds like the dream
scam?
life.
Well, that's what I was
right
going to say. What about somebody? I mean, we're going to talk about the girlfriend if she's an ex or not, or if you guys came back together, or we're gonna. Yeah. But what I want to say is one day you woke up and found your dream.
Yeah.
Okay. And no offense to anybody that I may have married previously, but that marriage would have probably changed the direction of your life completely.
Absolutely. You know, it was a narrow escape, and not a thing against the girl. She was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
She was sort of an innocent bystander. She was collateral damage because, it would have nenever lasted. It would have absolutely never lasted. It would have been terrible for both of us. And we ran into each other. She kind of sought me out a few years later and stuff, and she was married, had kids. So she got to live the life that she wanted, and I got to live the life that I wanted. I met the woman I was supposed to be with a few years after high school. We've been married for 38 years now. We honeymoon. We're not at the edge of the Grand Canyon, although partially, because from Ohio. We brought her. I brought her out here for 2 weeks, and we just rambled around. I said, "This is where we're going to live, so get used to it." She knew it, and so showed her everything. Fortunately, I took her to Chiricahua National Monument for our very first hike, because I thought, if she doesn't get this place, if she doesn't like this place, then that's irreconcilable differences. We'll just divvy up the wedding gifts, go our separate ways. It's done.
I get
it. Yeah, fortunately, she loved it, and so a few
you
years
did
later, we moved out here full time.
You did a complete 180 from what it would have been. I mean, you talk about it could have gone in a different direction.
It was a close
somebody
call.
Who's out every day, running around, finding awesome places to see, versus being in a General Motors factory.
Yeah.
Now I will tell you, my wife, and I give a lot of credit in my life for my wife, but I probably would not see the things that I have seen if it wasn't for her. Now, I'm an amateur photographer, and so at the time that was taking pictures of a lot of cactus, which everybody from Arizona does, cactus and sunset. But there comes a time where you get tired of seeing cactus and sunset behind your lens. And so you seek out what else there is in Arizona to see. I had no idea there was turkeys in Arizona. Okay, I had no idea. And
only
on our honeymoon,
on Thanksgiving,
on our honeymoon, I have a camera and I see a turkey for the first time, and my wife goes, "Be careful, they're not nice." And I go, "It's a turkey. What do you mean it's not nice?" So I go over the rail, and it's not only, and I hope I'm saying this right, Roger, and you'll correct me. Is it puplets? What's the name of the baby turkey? Does anybody know? Pulpits?
Yeah. That's
okay. Baby turkey. We're gonna go with
yeah.
it. So she had like 10 baby turkeys surrounding her, and my wife will probably correct me later. But anyway, I took 2 steps towards that, and Mama Bird got mad. Mama Bird chased me back into the car, and my wife just sat there like, lesson learned. Here you go. Give wildlife some respect, and if not, even a turkey can poke your eyeballs out. So that truly happened on our honeymoon. So lesson learned right off the bat.
And you're right about turkeys having kind of a bad attitude. And I've seen a lot of turkeys on the North Rim. One time, and one came down from the North Rim and was hanging out in Phantom Ranch down the Colorado River, which is very unusual.
Really? Yeah.
But it was a mean turkey, and the rangers warned us, because I was spending the night at Phantom, and they said he'll come at you. He'll charge you.
Security
just, kind
turkey.
of kick some dirt gravel at him. He usually backs off and stuff. And, and sure enough, he was just strutting around in the evening, just, kind of trying to boss everybody around. And, and I come out of my cabin in the morning, and I'm sitting there chewing some turkey jerky. And I look up, and there's the turkey on the cabin roof ahead. I think, oh man, he's going to jump
shake
me here.
That at him.
But so eventually, I read like about a month later or something, they had to relocate him because he was just pestering everybody. They had to take him back up to the North Rim.
Couldn't get out, probably couldn't figure it out.
Because
Because turkeys are smarter than you think they are. I mean, the rumor is that if they look up during the rainstorm, they drowned. You ever heard of that?
I have not heard that.
Okay. There used to be a turkey farm somewhere between Cottonwood and is it Mayer? Cottonwood in the Prescott Valley there.
Oh, the Mortimer Farms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had a big loss because a big hailstorm hit on top of their building. All the turkeys went to one corner to protect each other. Well, the ones on the bottom didn't make it because they were suffocated. But they are smart birds, and for those of you that think that you can hunt them, they're not as easy as you think because they have an incredible sense of smell. Who knew I would know so much about turkeys?
You just read that last night.
No. Ever since the one attacked me, right? The vicious turkey attacked me. I've learned all about turkeys. Because now
for your own well-being.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your own safety.
My
Yeah,
own
it's
safety.
wild.
Yeah, you got to learn.
We got lots of wildlife out here. It's not it's not rare. That's for sure.
No. So do you go out on these adventures and do you tent camp? Do you just sleep on the ground with a bedroll?
Usually, I used to do a lot of tent camping and some open sleeping, just with a sleeping bag and stuff. As I've gotten older, I do less of it, and also because I'm working all the time and I've always got a laptop and stuff. So now a lot of times I'm usually just grab a motel or something nearby and do a lot of day hikes and stuff.
Right.
And,
which is incredible. I once took a trip, and I forgot the name of the trail. You mentioned it earlier, but it was a 5-day trip. It started in Utah, came down to Lee's Ferry, and I did that with my father-in-law. I think prior to being married to my wife, because I wanted to show him what kind of man I was. Yeah, well, let me tell you, those guys were in their upper 60s, and they out-hiked me like if they had to slow down because of me. All right, because they go out with a group. They're always there. It was in the middle of July. They're always like, "Where's John? Where's John?" About 2 miles back.
If you're gonna do it, you got to do it a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
you got to work out. I mean, that's what it is.
Oh yeah, and I sat in this tent. I had this tent of my own, and it didn't have any cover. It was just all net. And I didn't care because every night I sat in there and that was my space. And I didn't want anybody talking to me because I was miserable. The hike was great, but I'm a shower kind of guy.
It's a legendary hike.
Yes.
Paria Canyon.
Paria, that is exactly
and
it.
it goes through that. You actually went through 2 national parks then, because it starts out in the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument and then ends up where it ends up. The Paria River runs into the Colorado there at Lee's Ferry, and that's part of the Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. And I mention that since I have a new book out on Arizona National Parks and Monuments.
Well, what's the name of your new book?
Arizona National Parks and Monuments. Covers all 34 national park units.
Okay, so there's 34 national parks in Arizona. How many state parks? Do you know that off the top of your head?
29, and then 3 state natural areas, because I also have a book called Arizona State Parks. As you can see, Roger Naylor, author of Arizona State Parks.
That's right.
That came out a few years ago. So yeah, between those 2 books, that's like 70 parks right there practically.
So tell me, is your book just you throwing up knowledge, or is it a directive of what to do and what to see in Arizona if you want to go see these things?
Yeah, it's a complete guide. I give you a lot of the history. I give you a lot of personal, my experiences at the park. Because every park is very different. We have 3 national full-fledged national parks, Grand Canyon, Petrified Forest, and Sororo. We have 19 national monuments, which is more than any other state. A national park requires an act of Congress to create. National monuments require just a presidential decree sometimes. So, but then we also have several other park units, such as National Historic Sites, National Recreation Areas, National Heritage Areas, which we are in one right now. We are within the borders of the Santa Cruz Valley National Heritage Area, which just received the designation back in 2019. So National Historic Trails, the Arizona Trails, a National Scenic Trail. So that's one. In fact, out of the 34 units, there are 15 of them within a 2-hour drive of Tucson. So almost half of the national parks in Arizona are within the 2 hours of Tucson, which is, that's a lot of adventures
great
right
stuff.
out there.
Well, Tucson has amazing stuff. I heard something, and I think I read it in Arizona Highways. A photographer's aspirations always to be in Arizona Highways. Yeah. Never gets there. No comment. But I read in Arizona Highways that Arizona represents almost every state with some type of landscaping. Whether it's pines, whether it's waterfalls, whether it's flowers, whether it's desert. We
are the most diverse state in the union by far, because we do have that combination of mountains and desert. And certainly other states have desert. But what people don't realize is the Sonoran has its roots in the tropics. This is America's only warm winter desert. The other deserts are, even the Mojave can be a little warmer in the desert, but not like the Sonora and stuff. So the other, Arizona actually contains elements of all four of the major American deserts in the country, the only state that does, the Mojave, Chihuahuan, Great Basin, and Sonora and stuff. But we have this combination of the high and the low, the difference in elevation in such close proximity that nobody else does. That's what makes, it's so great. That's one of the big advantages of being here, is that we can change our season. We can change our climate in just a short drive. I live in Cottonwood. I live in the Verde Valley. When I get to the end of my driveway, if I turn left in 45 minutes, I'm amid the world's largest contiguous ponderosa pine forest. I'm up above the Mogollon Rim. I'm in high country, 7,000 feet. If I turn right in 45 minutes, I'm hiking among the Sororos. I'm in the Sonoran Desert, and the tallest cactus in the country. I mean, who has those kind of options, And again, here in Tucson, during the winter, the idea that you can swim and ski in the same day, that when you drive to the top of Mount Lemmon, that's the equivalent of driving from Mexico to Canada. You pass through all those 5 life zones, except you do it in 27 miles. It's all squished together there. So that's just a lot of habitats pressed together. So, I grew up in Ohio. When it's winter in Ohio, it's winter in Ohio. If you want to change that, you've got to hop on a plane. When it's winter in Arizona, do you want to go skiing? Do you want to have a snowball fight? Or would you rather go golfing or hiking or swimming? Because, all those things, you can get up in the morning and be someplace completely different by lunchtime.
See, and this is my side note about Tucson, why people should live here. Okay, because of that very statement. From Tucson, it's a hub to everywhere.
And we got a lot of crap on a previous podcast about naming a bunch of stuff that was great about Tucson, but going out, 2 hours or whatever. But really, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what it doesn't have to be right. Yeah, because I consider Arizona all my neighborhood. But yeah, if you're driving an hour, you're driving 2. What a gift that is, that you can be there in 2 hours or something. Because it isn't. That's still a day trip. That's you can go have lunch someplace else, have an adventure, be back to sleep in your own bed if that's what you want, or you do it as an overnight. But
we did go as far as San Diego, though.
Well, I don't mind going to San Diego.
Exactly. That's not exactly a day trip, but exactly. We've got access to everything.
Right.
I could take my kid over there and let him see wildlife. Totally different from here.
I have wildlife at my house.
Oh yeah.
Wow. I had 9 deer in my front yard last week. I mean, it's just a very unique place.
Well, where else can you see a badger? I mean, I didn't even know Arizona had a badger until we saw one squashed on the road. And my wife, who has a degree in wildlife fisheries, said, "Oh, did you see that badger?" And I go, "There ain't no stinking badgers in Arizona." We literally turned around to identify it, and lo and behold, it was a badger.
I've seen a couple on the trail. They're rare, but I have seen them.
Right. I mean, what's the state mammal? Is that the ringtail?
Ringtail, yes.
Ringtail. I've seen one of those at the Grand Canyon in the lodge, in the loft. And they don't chase it out.
They're down here.
Are they? I haven't seen any ringtails. I didn't even know Arizona had foxes.
Oh, I saw one about a month ago.
Yeah?
Yeah. The little tiny one. I can't remember what it is. Gray. Is it gray? Is it red?
Well, we have both, so.
It was the more common one because I looked it up. That was just over the fence in my backyard.
Yeah, that's probably the gray fox.
And you usually don't see them during the day, but this one, there was a lot of noise out there with other animals, and I had my dog out, so it popped its head up, and it was cool.
It's surprising.
Oh, yeah, it surprised me. I had never seen one here, and I've been here for 25 years.
So is there a park, a state park or a national park or a national monument in Arizona you have not visited?
No, I've visited all of them because I've written about all of them.
Okay.
So, yeah, they've been the only one that there is one national park, one national monument you actually cannot visit, although if you've driven I-10, you've crossed it. But the Hohokam Pima National Monument is preserves the old pueblo of Snaketown, but it's on reservation land, and they've decided not to open it up to the public and stuff. So you can't actually go there, although, like I said, you do cross the boundary of it. But in the book, I include the information, the history of Snaketown, and, this is the ancestral Sonoran Desert people living there, and point out a couple museums where you can go see the nearby artifacts and learn more about it and so forth. But I visited every park.
You've intrigued me on Snaketown. Is it just because the people there? Is it named after the people, or is it full of snakes?
No, I think that was just the name.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's kind of mysterious, but it has been, archaeologists, did do an excavation, but then they decided to kind of leave everything intact, and, the tribe decided not to open it as.
So what keeps it from being pillaged from? Well, let's just say people.
Well, it's been covered back up.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not exposed.
So they did the research and then they said, no, we'll just
leave it. Yeah.
And was that the tribe who decided to do that?
Yeah, I think sometimes nowadays that's a fantastic choice.
Yeah.
We know where it's at. We know that it's there, but the public can't control themselves enough not to start taking chunks away. My wife always says every time I throw a pebble into the Grand Canyon, she said, if everybody threw a rock in the Grand Canyon every time they visit it, we wouldn't have the Grand Canyon.
That'd be a lot of people.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh man, she ruined it for me.
I think a lot of people who aren't from here originally, that is one of the first places that they go, or the reason why they come to Arizona. That was the first trip I ever made to Arizona. It was the Grand Canyon, and it is breathtaking. The first time you see it, it is massive.
All right, knowing the Smith family, here's what happened for me. 19, my dad decides to take me to the Grand Canyon.
Was it like Clark Griswold?
It was exactly like that. Okay, I took my best friend at the time up to the Grand Canyon. We stopped at Flagstaff, got a room. He went to a bar. We went to see Rocky. Oh, no, First Blood. Okay? We went to see First Blood. The next day we go up, and I think we had to rent a car even. Next thing we go up to the Grand Canyon, and we're standing in the Grand Canyon, and we went, okay, let's go home. And it was
Clark
that quick. It was that quick. And
I at least spent 2 days there.
I did not. I spent maybe 30 minutes. And I probably just went to the first lookout. I probably didn't even go and venture, didn't go in past. Literally, we turned around and went back home.
Oh, my gosh.
But then I met my wife, who took me there during the winter, during spring, summer. I got to see all different colors. She taught me how the sun sets and how the colors changes against the rock. She took me out at night because there's these inchworms that glow. There's all kinds of things at the Grand Canyon that you have no idea that are there.
It's pretty cool in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the snow on the Grand Canyon just because I don't like to photograph the snow. I don't know why, but it's just, I like the Grand Canyon, and I like it on a cloudy day with the sunrise and the sunset, just like everybody else.
I like to see it because we never do down here.
Snow?
Well, I mean,
it snowed 2 days ago up on Mount Lemmon.
Rarely down here. I'm talking about Tucson.
So, do you mind if I read an excerpt from the book?
Absolutely. I'd love for you to read
this is just for a little piece from the chapter on the Grand Canyon. And then there is the canyon. Nothing prepares you for the emotional and spiritual wallop of that first glimpse of the Grand Canyon. It is an epiphany lying in wait. You approach through a screen of forest until suddenly everything you thought you knew, everything that seemed safe and comfortable is snatched away, and you teeter on the edge of ruin. Stretching before you is a sea of naked rock, an endless array of temples and terraces, castles and cathedrals, awash in reckless light. The eons are stacked in layers below, nearly 2 billion years of geology laid bare. You stand at the end of the world and gaze toward the beginning. The size is unimaginable. You barely approach the rim, yet the canyon surrounds you, engulfs you, threatens to swallow you whole. Colors rage amid drifting cloud shadows and slanted sunlight. Cliffs of sandstone, limestone, shale, and schist are streaked red and purple, orange and yellow. These are broken mountains, propping up jagged horizons for a virtual eternity. Grand Canyon feels like a cataclysm pausing just to catch its breath. The silence is a symphony. The silence seduces. It grabs hold of you. Wafting up from the abyss, a profound quiet eclipses the petty noise of everyday life. The whisper of the canyon blots out all other sound. For the first time in your life, you can actually hear distance. Welcome to the Grand Canyon.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
See, I saw all of that. I could have never.
I saw
put
it
that
as you
together.
read it.
I would have just said, "Wow, that's awesome."
No, really, it took me back. It takes me
Oh,
back
yeah,
to
it
right
does.
there. It takes
Yeah.
to being back there.
You remember the first time you've seen that place.
Yeah.
You can't help but
yeah.
remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, it's just one of those things that's just so incredible that
It's a life-altering park. It's one of those places, and this is one of the reasons I like to write the books, and I like to go around and do presentations and talk and stuff, is to encourage people to get out and see this stuff in our backyard, because we're the only state that contains one of the 7 natural wonders of the world.
Yep.
Here's a place that people from all over the globe, every far-reaching country, save their money and scrimp and save so they can visit one time in their life a place that we can go any weekend we want. That's such a gift.
it is.
Every year, here's something I do, because, again, I live in the Verde Valley. I'm about 2.5 hours away, but so I visit frequently, but at least once a year, and I just did this back in October. I get up in the morning early, drive to the canyon. I hike down. This time I hiked down the South Kaibab Trail. I hiked down 3 miles to Skeleton Point. Got a little sitting rock there that I like. Got a little off the trail with a little pinon pine
pause
shaded.
you just for a second. It seems like everybody that hikes or hikes the Grand Canyon or hikes something in Arizona has their spot.
Exactly.
Where they have this rock they stop at every single, and they're creatures of habit. And maybe it's because it helps you measure distance. How are you feeling? Should I go any further? But my father-in-law, who's done rim to rim to rim, always talks about the spots that he sits at.
These are places of power. This is, I've been here many times. This spot on Skeleton Point has healed me. It's helped me celebrate things. It's got me through a lot. So I sit, I have a little snack, I hang out for an hour or so. I watch the ravens ride the thermals. I watch the cloud shadows sweep across the cliffs, and then I hike back out and I drive home in time for dinner. And you know why I do that? Because I can. Because that's one of the privileges of living in Arizona. That's a perk that only we get to enjoy, nobody else. And I always want to remind myself of that. I never want to take that for granted. So
we can't talk about the Grand Canyon without bringing up Ralph, who used to be our former manager, who's no longer with us. But he would lead groups of agents to go on the Grand Canyon because it was so deep meaning to him.
Yeah.
I remember one time he said he was going to do it the first time. He's going to go rim to rim. And he goes, if anybody wants to sponsor me, my goal is to do it in this time. If I make it at that time, then you would have to donate money to this charity. We covered his door with checks and dollars, and of course he made it.
Yeah.
Right? Of course he did.
Yeah.
He talked about that place spiritually. I mean, he did.
Yeah.
That's how he's no longer with us, but he hiked that every chance he got.
But look what he's done.
Completely understand.
Yeah, I mean, look at Lynette Brewster,
Yep.
Sharon Fern. They continue that tradition of going to
Sharon
the Grand
just got
Canyon.
back from maybe a month ago,
Right.
something like that.
So it has special meaning to my family as well. Obviously, my kids have been there multiple times. My wife and I continue to go there. If you've never done it, ride a bicycle around the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, you can rent
Was
bikes.
my favorite thing to do, especially with my electric bike. And then I
that
discovered
really biking?
I discovered recently, because I had not been to that section yet. I discovered Hermit's Rest.
Oh, yeah.
If you've never been to Hermit's Rest, it is the most coolest fireplace I've ever seen in my life.
It is very impressive. A Mary Coulter designed spot. That's one of her, signature places. In fact, because she also does the Desert View Watchtower there at the opposite end. That's at the far eastern entrance, and the Hermit's Rest is at the west end.
So the same
of
person
canyon
built
stuff.
that?
Yes, Mary Coulter.
I did not know that.
She was an architect for the Fred Harvey company, and very groundbreaking because obviously being a woman architect back in the early 1900s was not common. Her first, the first building she ever built on her own was next to the El Tovar. There is the Hopi House.
Okay.
She built that. So because when she started, she kind of changed the direction of national park architecture. The El Tovar was one of the big signature Harvey House hotels at the time. And this was because, everything changed at the Grand Canyon. Let me back up just a second. So everything changed at the Grand Canyon in 1901 when the railroad was completed from Williams, that spur line of track from Williams to the Grand Canyon. Because up until then, the only way to get to the canyon was, horseback ride, stagecoach and stuff for many, many hours. So you had tourists, but there weren't a ton of them. Now all of a sudden with the train, people were just coming by the carloads. So and it wasn't didn't become a national monument until 1908. It was a forest reserve, which that was the first designation it got back in 1892 from Benjamin Harrison. So the forest ranger there, they kind of partnered. They knew they needed some help with infrastructure, so they partnered with this new railroad to help them build out those hotels and restaurants. And one of the very first one, that the El Tovar was that big signature event. And it's a beautiful hotel, done by, Charles, I want to say let's see, but no, that's not right. But anyway, that was when he was trying to do it like sort of as a Swiss chalet hunting lodge kind, because European, it was still very European flavored at that time. Mary Coulter wanted to do indigenous architecture. She wanted to make places look like they just sort of belonged, that they grew out there, and that's what the Hopi House is. That's Hermit's Rest. She has a story for every place, and the Hermit's Rest was based on an old hermit who lived in the Grand Canyon, and this looked like his cabin that he had just stepped away from for a while with that big, huge fireplace and the chain. The Desert View Watchtower looks like something the Pueblo people might have built at the time. She also built Phantom Ranch and Bright Angel Lodge and so forth. Well, the La Posada Hotel that's been beautifully restored in Winslow is her most famous, is one of her masterpieces.
So I stayed, and I don't know the names of all of them like you do, but it's where you would check into the main lodge.
That's probably Bright Angel Lodge.
On the south side.
On the south rim, yeah.
Now, right outside there to the left is a cabin.
Yeah, the Bright Angel Lodge is the one that has the cabins. Okay. And she incorporated a couple of the historic cabins in that, because there's one that's Bucky O'Neill cabin that's so great to stay in. That's it's like literally 9 steps to the rim, because I stayed there a couple of times.
So the story I have, is just because I want to show how incredible the people that work at the Grand Canyon are. Because if you take time to talk to them, they will endear themselves to you. They want to make sure Grand Canyon is like your best experience that you've ever had. That's how I feel about it. So a year ago, everybody knows that my mom passed away. We were at the Grand Canyon at the time, staying in one of the cabins, and we had to just up and leave. And they, of course, let us check out. We got out of there, and then after my mom passed away, we went back to finish our trip. And the lady at the front desk remembered us and put us in that cabin.
Oh, nice.
Put us in that cabin that was 9 feet away from the edge. I was so thrilled. Tracy got in the shower. I opened up the front door, and I was showing tours because people want to know what's in the cabin.
Exactly. It is.
I go, you just can't go in there.
Yeah.
And so we literally had 12 people from Kansas inside of the first room. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And I'm like, we should start charging for this. Right.
Yeah, it's astonishing.
It is a beautiful cabin, cabin. Another fireplace. That's pretty amazing.
That was the original cabin built by Bucky O'Neill, who he was sort of the impetus for the railroad. He wanted to get the railroad there. He was a sheriff and mayor of Prescott and so forth. But unfortunately, before the railroad arrived, he volunteered to join Teddy Roosevelt's Rough Riders and was killed in Cuba. But really interesting guy.
Bucky Casino in Prescott.
Yeah.
Named after him.
But yeah, it's just so Mary Coulter incorporated his cabin into that design stuff, and that's one of my favorite places to stay. And a couple of times where I hiked down from the south rim to the river and then back in a day. And you're not supposed to do this, but I'm a pretty sturdy hiker, so I've done it. But it's so cool when you're staying in that cabin. You just hike down, and I always wanted to do this. I just come hiking out of the rim, and it's you've been in the canyon all day. Just come hiking out, walk right into your cabin, go to the refrigerator, get a beer, and just sit out in front of your cabin there and just drinking a beer, going, that was my day. That was my day. I just hiked down to the river and back.
Very
impressive.
That's,
it just those kind of special moments. That's what the parks give us.
That's what you have to allow yourself when you're there, is to find and participate in those moments. Yeah. If I did Grand Canyon like my dad and I did it on the first try, 10 minutes in, 10 minutes out, and hope we didn't run into an elk. Okay. I would have never gone back.
Right.
And until somebody exposed that to me in a different light, which I think is what some of your book, just by hearing your writing, does, it makes you want to seek more. It makes you want to find out, well, what else is in Arizona? Yes, it's got the beautiful Grand Canyon, but there's so much more. Havasupai Falls. Well, I could talk all day on that. But what I wanted to get at is two things. You keep bringing up a train. Okay. Did I read correctly that you are the voice of the narration on the train?
Of the Verde Canyon Railroad, yes. Yeah, there are a couple of trains in Arizona. There's a train to the Grand Canyon. That is not the one, but the one in Clarkdale, leaves from Clarkdale. Yep. It's the old, back when Jerome was still a big mining town, this is where they shipped a lot of the ore out on. It's a historic track built in 1912, I think, and it just takes you about 4 hours, heads out to an old ghost town of Perkinsville and turns around, comes back. But it's a scenic, it goes along the Verde River. It's in this high-walled canyon. It's very beautiful. It's a lovely, but yeah, since 2020 or so, I've been I'm the guy blabbing at you from the speakers there in between some of the railroad songs and stuff they play.
Very, that's one I got experience. Yeah. I didn't know they were two separate ones.
Yeah.
And so that's one that I'd be willing to do right out. It's Clarksdale, right? Is that what it was?
Clarkdale. Yeah, it's because the Grand Canyon Railway is terrific, but it's historic, serves a purpose. The scenery, it's pine forest. It's very nice, but it's there to get you to the Grand Canyon. Right. You can spend a few hours and then hop back on, turn around. So it's very much about the destination. Whereas the Verde Canyon Railroad it's all about the journey, because the canyon is populated with eagles, bald and golden eagles throughout the winter, and there are some year-round ones. So you always see eagles flying overhead. You see the herons. You see the deer. You see, like you're saying, all the wildlife along the way. You get the changing colors, and they do themed trains. There's the chocolate trains around the Valentine's Day. The holiday themed trains. There's ales to rails with the beer and the drink and stuff. Yeah, I was gonna say. I had a feeling that would be the one.
We gotta look that one up.
Sign me up.
That's Matt's wheelhouse.
But yeah, so they've got like first class cars and coach cars. But every car has access to an open air car, and that's where you spend most of your time. Yep. You're just out there, and it's just I'm such an old fashioned guy. I always feel like I was born in the wrong time period and stuff, and because I just love train travel. It's just so soothing, and you're just out there on the train, just it's moving along and watching the scenery roll by. And
I have done that one. It's cool. It was before your voice, but it was.
I didn't do that one.
Probably 25 years ago.
The train that I took was down to Copper Canyon in Mexico.
Oh.
If you ever have a chance to do that, the only thing I recommend is don't drink the water. Because it got me. It got me. So where I'm leading to all this, one, I want to make sure I talk to you about your voice in case anybody recognizes it. Two, what's your favorite park in Arizona? And you cannot say Grand Canyon.
Chiricahua National Monument.
Isn't it an awesome park?
If it were in any other state, it would be featured on their license plate. It is absolutely stunning. I fell in love with it right from the beginning. Like I said, that's where I took my wife right away. I said, this is a place you got to see, because I needed her to understand it is just this stone garden, this incredible, it was a volcanic event about 25 million years ago that spewed all this lava and ash into the air, and it fell back to earth, created this rhyolite crust that's been chipped away and gnawed and eroded all this time, and now it's just all these hoodoos and columns and spires, and it looks like somebody busted up the Easter Island heads for kindling. It looks like wilted castles. It's just the skyline is just astonishing. And 17 miles of trails weave among there, and great wildlife. It's a sky island, so you get birding, wildlife. It's just spectacular.
Get out of your car.
Yeah.
You cannot see a park from your car. Now, I have done it for many years, trust me. All right. But like Saguaro National Monument, I did not start falling in love with Saguaro National Monument until I got out of my car and got on a trail. Because I could see it totally different. I could see a snake. I could see the bird I was looking for. A roadrunner will run by you. In a car, you only see so much because there's a guy pushing you, wanting you to go faster behind you. These parks are designed for you to take them in and to enjoy them. It's not an idea of you run. It's not a drive-through, okay? If you want to drive through, go to Arizona, which is not a bad thing. But
exactly,
go to Arizona because there'll be something for you to do. But if you don't get out of your car and let your family out of the car, you're doing a disservice to them.
Yeah, you want to explore the parks. You want that personal connection, and that's how you make it. And the only thing I will disagree with you on is that some of these parks have beautiful scenic roads, so take advantage of those. But you absolutely want to make that personal connection with the park, and that's what the book is filled with some of my favorite stories and some of the moments that I have in those parks, because those are the memories that you keep for a lifetime, travel memories. We all have memories of different things and stuff, but it's the travel memories that stick with you. We all remember road trips from when we were kids and stuff, just some little, and it may not be the biggest moment, it may not even be standing at the rim of the Grand Canyon, but maybe stopping for a piece of pie at a little diner along the way or
going
something.
to the thing.
Yeah, yes, visiting the thing, a roadside attraction.
We're back on the thing.
You want to create those kind of memories. You were talking about Paria Canyon and stuff, and I have the story in the book, but one of my absolute favorite days, it was in the middle of summer, several years ago, absolutely brutal heat. I think it was like 115 that day, just scorching. And I was relaxing at Lonely Dell Ranch. I'm sure you've been to a nice shady spot that was created by the people who ran the ferry, Lee's Ferry, and his families, the families that came after, with all these orchards, and it's really a nice little oasis. But for some reason, I thought I want to hike, and I started hiking into Paria Canyon, and you're just following the river, and at that point the canyon's not very narrow. It narrows as you go along and stuff, but it is just brutal. But I'm a desert hiker. I'm acclimated. I've got plenty of water to drink. I've got a river to wade in. I can always take my shirt off and put in, soak it in the river, my hat, there's shade in the cliffs. And the heat was the sun was like on my shoulder. It was growling at me. The heat was a thing alive. It was clawing at me. I was just raining sweat. But it felt so purifying. And, I hiked for a few miles, got in there, and just when I sat down in the shade and pressed my wet back against the cliff wall, it was exquisite. It was like purifying. It felt like a form of rebirth. I made it back to my car eventually, there's a couple of lodges out there with ice cold beer. I'm sitting on the porch. I got an ice cold beer. I've got a delicious burger. The sun's swabbing the Vermilion Cliffs down. It was like one of the best days. And now every winter, anytime there's a blustery, cold, gray day, that's the memory I take out and I warm up with. That's what takes me back there. I go, yeah, I'll have those days again.
So isn't it amazing that there's two camps to every story? I hiked that area. I was miserable. I'm keeping up with these people that are 20 plus years older than me. I'm carrying what I thought would be not enough equipment, but come to find out I took too much equipment. I had to climb over a big rock, climb down a ladder, crawl on my belly, go through the water just to get into the entrance. And then it came time for me to filter water. I think we were on day 3. I was out of water that I brought, so I had to filter some of that river water. So I'm over there, and they have this cartridge at the time, and you pump it, and it runs water through. All things going great until a big dead rat floats by my bottle.
Oh,
okay. And as the experienced hiker that I was not, no. No. And then I thought, okay, well, there's some fresh water floating off this rock. I could just drink that, right? It's moving water. It's gone through. Oh, I was sicker than a dog by the time I got out of there. And that was my own fault.
I think there's some.
But I loved it.
And
so you still got the memory, though.
I have a couple memories.
You
One,
get the challenge. Yeah.
I think my ego got best of me when I was trying to impress my father-in-law. Two, just pretty much that, right? But I do have the story about the time I went hiking with my father-in-law, and he didn't give up on me so quick because he took me to Havasupai Falls,
Nice.
okay, which is a whole nother story in itself, because that's an adventure, but it's a gorgeous adventure. So what was you saying? I
don't remember.
You.
I can't even remember.
So you said Chiricahuas, right? Because what
Chiricahua
wildlife do we
National
have there?
Park, yeah.
We have coatis.
Coatimundi is the only place, and as much as I'm on the trail, as much as I'm hiking, that is the only place I've seen Coatimundi. And I've seen a ton of them, but only in Chiricahua. I've never seen them anywhere else.
Tons of them in Chiricahua. Tons of them. It's like it's.
They're so much fun. They're just such goofballs. They're just so fun to see coming down the trail because they're not that frightened of you and stuff. They got the big periscope tail up and they're snooping around. It's just just a treat.
And the campgrounds there are clean.
Yeah,
they're attended to.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me because my wife and I've gone there I think 3 times. And camped. And so if she can get me there a place 3 times and actually
now I got to go because I haven't been
yeah, it is.
And
it's just spectacular.
While you're in the area, if you time it right, you can go see the birds over Wilcox. It's out there by Elfrida, I think. There's
the Wings over Wilcox. That's every January. They have a big festival. It's thousands of sandhill cranes come and nest out on the playa there. It's a little shallow bit of water, and what is very cool about that is they all tend to take off early in the morning as a group, so you get that big mass of those whooshing wings, and so everybody kind of gathers out there very quietly and just watches the spectacle and stuff. So again, just one of those things that people don't necessarily associate with Arizona. Well, it's all it's all flat and brown and cactus and hot and right. Yeah, you don't have all that stuff. So
no, if I had to do it all over again, I'd RV there and stay the night over. We got up like at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning to get there at sunrise when the birds were supposed to take off. Freezing, right? And this lady was sitting out there, and we pull, and she goes, "About time you got here. You about missed it." Right? And I love nature people, because they don't pull any punches. Okay, they're going to tell you how it is. They're going to whack you over the head if you. Oh, you missed it an hour ago. Got some beautiful pictures. They'll tell you, right? So we got Chiricahuas. We've got the Grand Canyon. Tell me a little bit about the Verde Valley, because I think that is one of the most underrated areas of Arizona.
It's gorgeous. We moved there 30 years ago, and so it's certainly evolved. It's changed a little bit. It's grown. Cottonwood has grown. Which we knew everything was grow, but it still maintains a small town feel. It's still very comfortable. The thing that's the biggest change is it's become a wine destination. That's
really?
Very much so. Yeah, that is the hot wine spot. And when we moved to Cottonwood, as much as I loved it, though, the little downtown, which kind of consists of about 3 blocks of old Prohibition-style buildings, or era buildings, they were built in the 20s and 30s and stuff. But so very picturesque, but most of them were closed or empty, junk shops, not a lot there.
Right.
If you wanted to eat dinner at 7 o'clock at night, there was a Denny's in town, and that was pretty much it. But over the years, especially with the wine desk, we've got like 6 wine tasting rooms in our little downtown, and all these fancy restaurants. We got little boutique hotels and stuff, and because people who drink wine tend to have money. They, these are affluent travelers, and they like food. So the restaurant game, everybody's sort of elevated their game, and the locals get to take advantage of that. Now we've got all that. Our downtown, our tiny little downtown, actually stays open in the evening, has a little bit of a nightlife and stuff, and some really spectacular, restaurants. And another one just opened recently, but from a famous rock star, Maynard Keenan of Tool and Pussifier and stuff. He's got his winery there and up on a hill, and a beautiful restaurant that looks out over the valley and stuff. So it's become really nice. And, it's just an ideal destination, because right there, in Cottonwood, we're half an hour from Jerome, we're a half an hour from Sedona, the Verde Canyon Railroad's right there, we're a half an hour from Camp Verde with Out of Africa, Montezuma Castle, Fort Verde and stuff. We're an hour from Prescott, we're an hour from Flagstaff, we're an hour from the north side of Phoenix, 2.5 hours from the Grand Canyon. So it's, it's as far as a base camp goes, you can't do any better. You can come up and for the people who like wine, because there's, wineries in Elgin and Sonoyta and around Wilcox too and stuff. But they don't have the infrastructure that we do. They're kind of scattered in space. You check into this really nice hotel. You get out, you go drink, eat, drink. You never have to get in your car.
I'm in again.
You'll be there by Saturday.
That's right.
You're back in
I'm
your
already
hotel.
planning my trip.
So, it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So is there, and this is only for my own memory, is there a Hobo Joe still there?
It's been gone for
Has
some
it been
time.
gone?
Although you can still see the Hobo Joe. Yeah, it's called something else now, but they still got the Hobo Joe statue.
Hobo Joe's used to be Denny's before it was Denny's, but there was this hobo guy that was and they would give out
their
comics.
mascot.
Yeah, they'd give out comics to kid about the adventures of Hobo Joe, and that's just what I know of Cottonwood. Wife number 2 was from Cottonwood, so it just.
So I don't want to ask how many wives we're going back there.
Okay, well, let's enjoy the numbers as they come in. Let's just say, okay, there's a reason why I drive a broken down truck. No. So, the Meteor Crater.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not a national park.
No, it is
and
not.
I always thought that it
privately
was.
owned. Yeah.
Somebody bought the land that the Meteor Crater was on, and then they decided to open. So it's really just a roadside attraction.
Route 66, a legendary Route 66 roadside attraction. Yeah, so it's very cool. I mean, it's the best preserved meteor crater on Earth. Was the first one proved to be a meteor because everybody thought it was an old volcano, and the Daniel Behringer, I think it's Daniel, kept saying no, it's a meteor and stuff, and it took him years to prove it, but he proved it, and so when the astronauts back in the 70s or 60s, when they were getting ready to prepare for the moon mission, that's where they trained, one of the places they trained, and up around Flagstaff. And they also took all the astronauts on a hike in the Grand Canyon just to teach them about strata, rock strata and stuff, because they wanted, once they realized once they're trying in such a rush to get these guys on the moon, they needed to give them something sciencey to do up there. What were they just going to do? It, land on the moon, walk around, go okay, and then head back. So they needed to teach them about geology so they could make some tests and do stuff. So they took them to Meteor Crater and the cinder fields around Flagstaff. That's where they practice on their little rovers, and then they took them down the Grand Canyon to show about the strata.
We've talked a little bit about Flagstaff, but the amount of biking trails and walking trails that are in Flagstaff alone that's within the city limits really is they have an entire park there. I'm trying to think of the name of it. I think it has a bear out in the front of it. I'll remember it.
Buffalo Park.
It was a buffalo. It wasn't a bear. It was a buffalo. So it is Buffalo Park. If you ever have a chance to be there and you want to walk or you want to ride a bike, perfect place to do so. Perfect place to do so. The weather's amazing, obviously. One of my favorite places, probably my favorite place besides the Grand Canyon, is Monument Valley. And the reason why I love Monument Valley so much is it speaks to me spiritually. Now, I know that's kind of weird. How could rock speak to you spiritually? But
not weird at all.
I can go in there and find such peace and such quietness. I usually have a guide because it's not very expensive to get a guide. It's well worth it because they can take you almost behind the scenes of the monument. And it's a different park every time you go there, in my eyes. Whether it depends on where the sun's setting, whether the weather's coming in, whether it's wintertime, summertime. And it's so close to my second favorite place. It's not in Arizona, but if I go to Monument Valley, I always visit Mexican Hat.
Oh yeah, that's such a cool little town,
right? You got to visit
a great
Mexican Hat,
little
right?
place. It used to be a great little saloon there.
Yeah,
we'd always
right.
We'd always stop and drink at the Hat because I used to go camping in Canyonlands up in Utah a lot and stuff. But Monument Valley is not a national park; it's a tribal park.
Okay.
But and I get asked this question a lot, but what's your favorite hiking trail in Arizona? And as much as I love the Grand Canyon, as much as I love Chiricahua, if I had to pick a single hiking trail, it would be the Wildcat Trail in Monument Valley. It circles the West Mitten there, and it's one that you can take without a Navajo guide. You can go on your own and stuff. But there's something, especially someone who grew up with cowboy movies, there's something really incredible about walking across the floor of Monument Valley, walking around the West Mitten, and seeing these.
It's John Wayne, man.
And just that. It's the West. I mean, it's just that whole. You you're in the West. You feel that connection, and it's just it's just amazing and stuff.
I got locked in the Hubble Trading Post once.
Oh,
because everybody went home.
National Historic Site.
I've been known just to stay a little too long trying to catch that perfect image. But no, there's just so much about Arizona and so much information. So you've written this series of books. How many books have you written about Arizona?
I think 10 or 11.
Okay.
Like that.
And then it just takes us through Arizona, or do you have books on other locations? Or
no, I've got my very first book on Arizona is in fact Arizona Kicks on Route 66. So it just kind of focused on the Arizona portion of Route 66 because Arizona's the state that saved Route 66, and I tell that story. And we have the longest unbroken stretch of Route 66 still in existence, and there's just a lot of cool stuff. I tell you where to get great pie, because you should always be able to get pie when you're traveling Route 66.
Everybody that travels
all
wants
the
to have
attractions.
pie.
Yeah. So and this is important to remember because we're coming up on a centennial here. In 2026 will be Route 66 will turn 100 years old. So that's going to be massive celebration. I think that it's going to receive a national park designation before then. But so that was my first book. But I did a book on Death Valley. That's great. But yeah, the others are, one of them, my books is called Boots and Burgers, an Arizona Handbook for Hungry Hikers. Unfortunately, the publisher kind of fell on hard times during COVID, so that one went out of print. But I just wrote a new edition, and it's my new publisher now will come out in next October, just with, because that's my favorite day. What's a better day than to go out, hike a trail, walk off some calories, and then stop, find a great little burger, pack the calories back on.
So you got Matt's attention when you said burger.
I got, it's got like 70 restaurants, 70 trails.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot, and if you don't want to have to answer this or not, what was the best burger you've had in Arizona?
Harvey's Wine Burger in Phoenix, and a dive bar, just a dark, dingy, I mean, not dingy, it's very clean, but a dark dive bar. He's been doing it for a while, and it's just on an old flat top that looks like it may have come from God's yard sale, and just throws a fresh ball of meat on there, smashes it once with a spatula, pours on this slosh of wine, and it comes up with this boozy steam there, and he covers with a lid, and it is the tenderest, juiciest burger ever. I mean, it's just, it's just exquisite. It's just a master. It's succulent. It's a masterpiece. But there you got great burgers all over. Best burger in Tucson, Red Garter.
Oh, really?
Red Garter Bar and Grill.
Oh, I think I've
been to the Red.
I've been there.
I've been to the Red Garter.
Oh man, they make a good burger. Use premium meat, again fresh. It is just nice and simple. A lot of people like a lot of fancy stuff, a lot of add-ons. I'm more of a straightforward guy. I'm all about the meat and the quality, and then keep it simple, maybe with mustard, onion, lettuce. That's all I need. And stuff.
Do you have an adult beverage with it as well?
Sometimes, it depends.
Okay, so that's not out of the realm.
That's not, certainly not. But
so the book tour continues. Where are you going to be in the next couple of days?
Oh well, I'm doing a talk at the Western National Parks Association store this very afternoon, but then I travel in all over the state. I give talks in every corner of the state, do a lot of interviews, a lot of television. Next week I'm doing 2 television interviews, a couple of radio interviews. stuff. So the book tour lasts for several months and kind of builds up, and then by that time, then the next book comes out, and I start all over again and stuff. So
how do I get your book?
You can always visit. You can go. They're available in stores as well, but and on Amazon. But you can always go to rogernaylor.com, and every book that's ordered through my website, I do sign, and that's also where you can sign up. I do a monthly newsletter that I send out free that just kind of tells you where I'm going to be talking and things. My favorite burgers, my favorite pies, my favorite. So that's a great way to kind of get more Arizona information. You can sign up there on the website and follow me on Facebook. I've got like 35,000 followers on Facebook and stuff. So you can kind of keep an eye peeled. Some fans like your mother-in-law and stuff.
Well, I'm a fan now too. So if you get a pair of panties up on stage, I'm going to make sure she attaches my card to it so you can read it off. I mean, if I can convince her to do that. So I want to ask you one more question before we let go, because it's something that's on my mind. We just had a presidency change. Let's not stick to politics or go to politics. But anytime a president changes, policy changes, and things usually come with it, right? Because people have a different direction on the economy, on climate change, all of that. Should we have any concerns for now and in the future about our parks closing or being defunded?
Yeah, that's always a big concern, and that has happened in the past. Under the previous Trump administration, he did cut back on several national monuments, reduce the size and stuff. And there's always going to be people that some feel that the parks aren't valuable, or we don't need the wide open spaces, or they're there for we should be able to mine them or do different things. So I mean that's a political discussion. Obviously, I'm a big outdoor guy. So I'm always in favor of as much protection as we can. We need to preserve our wide open spaces. We need the clean air, because this is how we create memories. This is how we get kids interested in nature. This is how the more parks we have, the better. The more trails we have, the better. It's one of the reasons I go around touting all of these. And sometimes I get people saying, "Well, I don't tell them about this trail. I don't want people visiting, or I don't want people going to that park or something." I want as many people on the trails and in the parks as humanly possible, because that's how they fall in love with them. Just like, your wife started taking you to these places. Now, all of a sudden, you see the wonderful things that are there. So you're like, okay, now I understand more. That's how I want everybody to experience them. So, once you take away a park, once you decide, well, we'll develop it or mine it, it's gone. There's no coming back from that. So it is a really major decision about whether to do, well, if we take this, we can mine this, or we can turn this into housing, or we can develop this or something. Once there is no coming back from that.
Gone.
Yeah,
well, there's consequences to every action.
Yeah, so it is. I understand. We need. The growth continues, and there's going to be tough choices to be had and stuff. But I always feel like
it can all happen at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, you can have advancement, development, things like that, but we need to leave those places alone.
Yeah. Oh, I think we're all in agreement. Yeah. But I think here's something that needs to happen. People need to get out of their houses and go to these parks.
Oh, the more people use it,
exactly. And that they're being used. Because
and the more support they'll get.
They're the first target, right?
Right.
I mean, I actually twice hiked up the top of Picacho Peak. I was shocked.
That's
that I made
hard
it.
hike.
Oh,
that's
chains and cables, my friend. Yeah. It's not an easy hike. And but I was pretty proud of myself. The view's fantastic from up there, and it's well worth doing. Yeah. And it's only because I just said, you know what, I haven't been there.
All of these adventures are worth doing. And to your point, we have 34 national park units. Out of those, 20 are completely free, no admission charge. But even if, I always have a state park pass, I always have a national park pass. National park pass for an entire year is $80. Yeah. That's it, which is a bargain. And if you're a military family, a veteran, anything, it's free.
Right.
Or if you're a geezer like me, if you're senior, if you're 62, again, then it's $20 a year, or The one I have, $80 lifetime. I bought I plunked down $80 like 5 years ago, and that's it. So yeah, the state park pass is $75 a year, and again, I'm at the state parks every day practically. So it's just a bargain. It's really, it's a small investment, and you'll use it, you'll wear it out. Because that frees you up. You just never have to think about it. That payment.
Before I let you go, I got 2 more questions. I just keep coming, right? Okay. One, what do you think's the most underrated park we have in Arizona?
National or state? National?
Yeah.
National park. Well, one of the least known, I think, is Grand Canyon Parashant National Monument, which is the most remote place in the lower 48 states. It is a park not to go to. Please do not go here because unless you are completely ready, prepared, it will eat your tires. It will snap your axles. It's 50 miles of dirt road just to reach the border of it, and everything is four-wheel drive inside. But if that's your kind of adventure, then it's astonishing because it's completely, you talk about night skies like you've never seen before in your life, and, some incredible scenery, viewpoints of the Grand Canyon. You're like 900 feet above the river that you have all to yourself. It's wonderful. So that's one that a lot of people don't know about, and it's much harder to reach. I don't have four-wheel drive. I have to go with a buddy, but, it's worth it for me. Hubble Trading Post, I think everybody really needs to see. It's a historic site because it's, again, just a great way to experience a different culture. It's the ultimate time capsule experience in Arizona because it takes you back. It's unchanged for 150 years. They're still doing
baskets, blankets,
all that.
Tell them I said hello.
Yeah, they'll remember you.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, you go into the visitor center. There's a Dene woman working on one of the huge rugs on an upright loom. And if you've ever thought, man, those rugs might be a little expensive or something, you won't after you see all the work that goes into all the patience, all the detail that they work months and months and months on those and stuff.
All right, Roger, last question before we go. Outside of Arizona, what's your favorite national park?
Canyonlands in Utah, then Capitol Reef right behind that.
So just so much to see.
Yeah. I used to camp there every single summer. I would go camping in Canyonlands and backpacking in Canyonlands, and I still would. I think that I will do that when I retire. But once I started writing books, I just didn't have free time anymore, so I had to kind of give it up. But I love our neighbors. I mean, I'm a huge Arizona guy all the way down the line, but we have a great neighborhood too. So yeah, southern Utah, New Mexico's got beautiful parks. Joshua Tree over in there's everywhere you go in the Southwest.
Where, I know I said it was the last question, but they keep coming. Where is it that the rocks move by themselves?
That's a Death Valley on the
California.
That Death Valley's mostly in California, a little bit into Nevada, but that section that you're talking about with the racetrack, that's the racetrack that's in California. Very rough road to get back to and stuff, but really magical.
So, hey, guys, I want to thank our guest, Roger Naylor.
Thank you very much, Roger. It was great.
What an amazing experience just to sit here with you and talk Arizona. It's kind of in the wheelhouse. My wife having a degree in wildlife and fisheries, that's kind of what pushes us. She used to be a ranger at what's the desert? The Petrified Forest. Okay, so it's amazing just to hear her stories and a different version of how things are looked at from even a ranger's perspective on that place, because she just loves the Petrified Forest.
It's gorgeous.
And if you don't look at it right, then it's nothing. But if you open your eyes and you spend the time to do more than just drive through it, and you get out of your car and you experience it, there's no words for it, and just none. So, hey, Roger, thanks. Good luck with your book sales.
Yes.
We're going to get a copy here for the office so everybody gets a chance to check it out. We might even pop in. And again, if that pair of underwear comes flying through there, you know who it was.
I will
okay?
know. Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Great meeting you guys.
If you have any questions about today's show, feel free to reach out to us directly at smithandbollinger@longrealty.com. And always remember, we're here for you for all your real estate needs. Whether it's residential, commercial, investment, or land, we got you covered.